Chapter 2. Black Dot. Black Seed Archetype of Humanity. George James, 1976, reported that the education of the Egyptian priests consisted of specialization in secret systems of language and mathematical symbolism called hieroglyphics. This system was used by the priest in order to conceal secret and mystical meaning of their doctrines. The mystery system of Egypt employed modes of spoken language which could be understood only by the initiated. These consisted of myths, parables, and a secret language called Senzar. Egyptians attached numerical values to word letters and to geometrical figures to perform the same mystical function as hieroglyphics. Each temple was to be a microcosm and symbol of the universal temple, a cell as a reproduction of the world. According to Herodotus, the Egyptian priests possessed supernatural powers, for they had been trained in the esoteric philosophy of the greater mysteries and were experts in magic. Egyptian priests were the first genuine priests of history who exercised control over the laws of nature. Magic was used as applied religion and primitive scientific method. The amulet of the Eye of Horus is an excellent example of ancient Egyptians' reference to the black dot, its deeper meaning and truth, concealed with myth, geometrical, and mathematical symbolism. One of the most important myths of ancient Egypt concerned Horus. Regarding this myth, Bob Breyer, 1980, writes, according to myth, Horus fought his evil uncle Seth to avenge the death of his father Osiris. In battle, Horus's eye was torn to pieces, but with magic, Thoth, god of magic, science, writing, assembled the pieces. Each element of the Eye of Horus represented a different fraction. The hieroglyph for one half was one quarter, and so on. The total of the fractions is 63/64. The missing 1/64 is supposedly supplied magically by Thoth. The amulet was called Ujat or Sound Eye because of its association with the regeneration of Horus Eye, the third eye, the eye of inner vision. The Eye of Horus is thus the third eye, a regenerated or transformed eye, the eye of magic. Close examination of an Eye of Horus reveals that the black dot is the pupil or one quarter, and it is the point through which light enters the eye. Through the process of initiation, psychological integration, expansion of consciousness, and translation of the unconsciousness, the ancient African mystery school student, through a process of initiation, passed from a state of the lower self awareness, small case I, into the higher self, I. Capital Y also refer to the column or backbone in the human body, temple, which contains a string of glands along the column, with each higher gland yielding progressively greater hormone output. This progresses with the pineal gland or third eye at the top of the spinal column and culminates with the development of an expanded state of consciousness. Again, George James reported that the earliest theory of salvation was the Egyptian theory. The Egyptian mystery system had as its most important object the deification of man and taught that the soul, mind of man, if liberated from its bodily fetters, could enable him to become godlike, attain inner vision, and hold communion with the immortals, sons of light. Black Dot Pyramidion, doorway to the temple. There are a number of examples that illustrate that the ancient Egyptians concealed their inner knowledge in the construction of architectural monuments. Before the entrance to the Egyptian temple, there usually stood two obelisks, with the most important part being the pyramidal point or pyramidion. The pyramidion has been found by modern science to often be an all black capstone at the top of most pyramids and obelisks. The entrance to the temple obelisk's highest point was black. Thus, it was the first point of the pyramid temple site or obelisk temple site to receive sunlight as the sun arose from darkness on each new day. The Black Pyramidion and the Eye of Horus, or Heru, referred to a doorway of darkness, pyramidion pupil, where light first penetrates when entering the temple or human body. However, it is not until one examines modern scientific literature that one can fully appreciate this ancient African reference to black sunlight and the night eye. Black dot, locus coeruleus, doorway to the temple. The brain structure, locus coeruleus, offers strong biological scientific evidence that directly support the ancient African claim that black dot is the doorway to the temple, the mind, and collective unconscious. First, the name locus coeruleus literally means black dot. Locus is a Latin word, stolocus locum, meaning point or dot. Coeruleus is derived from the Indian Sanskrit name Caeruleus Yamas, meaning black. This is a critical finding because the Sanskrit name Caeruleus appears to predate Greek, Latin, or other Western European languages. In fact, this name appears to be of African origin and was used by Africans in Africa, Europe, and Asia. It appears that ancient European Sanskrit borrowed the term from the African populations that migrated to India from Africa many thousands of years earlier. The profound and excellent journal by current day African Hebrews, History, the Bible and the Black Man, 1980, recently reviewed the book Ethiopia, The Missing Link in African History by Reverend Sterling Means, 1945. His book cited many reports of the Black population of India that begins at the southern side of the Hindu Kush Mountains, the place where the Ethiopian race formed into the Hindu or Indian nation. India was first peopled by a Black race, with whom Herodotus as acquainted under the name Ethiopians. The continent India is over one-third Negroid today. The earliest people to occupy India are supposed to belong to the Nigritic race. Herodotus states that the Ethiopian race inhabited the lands towards the rising and setting sun. He divided them into two nations and said they differed in nothing from the other Ethiopians, save their language and the character of their hair. The eastern Ethiopians have straight hair, while those of Libya, Africa, are woollier than any other nation on earth. The ancient empire of Ethiopia once included all the subcontinent of India. The statue of Buddha with Negroid features is found throughout India, which shows that a woolly-haired race once ruled there. Duri, Volume 1. Thus, the name Caeruleus, though Indian Sanskrit, is a borrowed African word. Additional proof of the African origin of Caeruleus can be found in the work of the great African historian Cheikh Anta Diop, 1978, in The Cultural Unity of Black Africa, concerning early African settlers of Greece. Diop states that Danaus had a wife named Ethiopis and a daughter Seleno, whose name means black. A daughter of Atlas also bore the same name. Seleno had a son by Neptune called Silenus. Silenus, son of Philos, is the basis for the ancient legendary cults of Peloponnesus. Perseus, the king of Argos, had a grandson Silesus. Selena was also the daughter of Proteus, the king of Tyreus. The Indian Sanskrit word coeruleus is derived from the ancient Ethiopian name Seleno, which means black. This is further proof of the word's Ethiopian origin, because the Greeks borrowed their mythological figures from the Ethiopians. Jochanan, 1974-1980. Dr. Ben Jochanan has found Hercules, whom the Greeks admitted was one of the gods, was of Ethiopian origin. Certainly in the historical study of Black Dot, locus coeruleus is one of the most important subjects to explore. Locus coeruleus literally means black dot. We have reviewed the evidence that coeruleus is an Indian Sanskrit name borrowed from Ethiopians in India, and that it came from the Ethiopian word seleno. Thus, we are left with this extraordinary evidence that ancient Africans studied brain anatomy and named this critical brain site coeruleus. Solano, because of its appearance and function, was symbolically in line with other research evidence of the time. As Western science investigates the locus coeruleus, increasingly more biological evidence emerges that directly supports the ancient African concept that coeruleus is a black dot doorway to the collective unconscious. The locus coeruleus is black because it contains large amounts of melanin, the same chemical that produces skin color, Amaral, 1977-1978. Its cells provide the principal noradrenergic nerve supply to many areas of the brain: cerebral cortex, hippocampus, cingulate gyrus, and amygdala areas that make up the major portion of the limbic cortex. The locus coeruleus also supplies part of the norepinephrine found in other brain areas such as hypothalamus, thalamus, and habenula, deep pineal. Cerebellum lower brainstem and spinal cord, Kobayashi, 1975. Importantly, the locus coeruleus affects memory, as one would expect because melanin affects memory. The locus coeruleus is normally involved in the temporal delineation of the susceptibility period of newly formed memory. A malfunction of the locus coeruleus can result in a profound extension of the normal susceptibility period of newly formed memory to ECS-produced amnesia, Zorencer, 1976. Additional evidence of the role of the locus coeruleus as a doorway to the collective unconscious is present in the biological evidence that the locus coeruleus is the uppermost point in an all-black neuromelanin nerve tract that runs from the brainstem into the spinal cord. Olsnecki, 1964, mapped the brainstem and found 12 brain sites containing pigmented melanin cells. These are the substantia nigra with its associated nucleus brachialis pigmentosus and nucleus paranigralis. The other 9 nuclei are either part of a neuromelanin column or adjacent to the neuromelanin column that Bazelon, 1967, found. Marsden, 1961, and Scherer, 1939, have found that melanin is present in the brain of all animals, with the degree of pigmentation increasing as one moves up the evolutionary ladder. Mammals have the greatest degree of pigmentation among all animals, and primates have the greatest brain intensity pigmentation among all of mammals. With primates, the higher the evolutionary type of brain organization, or the closer the primate to the human type, the greater the degree of pigmentation within the brain. Kotzius, 1974. Scherer, 1939, reported that in humans the intensity of pigmentation of the locus coeruleus was the same as that found in the substantia nigra, deep melanin pigmentation. This was in contrast to the near human type primate chimpanzee, where the substantia nigra is highly pigmented, but the locus coeruleus is pigmented much less. Thus, all animals have an internal core of melanin in their brains. All humans possess this black internal brain evidence of their common black African origin. The all-black neuromelanin nerve tract of the brain is profound proof that the human race is a black race, with many variations of black, from black to white black, all internally rooted in a vast sea of brain blackness. One of the critical keys that distinguish man from all other animals is this presence of intense blackness, neuromelanin pigmentation of the locus coeruleus, black dot, the uppermost center of pigmentation, the doorway that opens into an all-black hall of blackness, the neuromelanin amenta nerve tract. Black dot, black ectoderm, doorway to the temple. There is only one race of humans on this planet Earth, the black race, with many nuances of black. Just as there are written and geological records of humanity's past, there are also biological and mental records of humanity's origin. After the male sperm fertilizes the female egg, it divides and multiplies to form an early cluster of cells, blastula, from which the fetus child will develop. This early blastula contains 3 layers, outer ectoderm, and inner layer endoderm and mesoderm. Every part of the body has its origin in one of these 3 layers of cells. The outer layer of the ectoderm contains melanin throughout its outermost layer, Pierce, 1976. By the 28th hour following conception fertilization of the female egg, the ectoderm has begun to invaginate into the interior of the cluster of early fetal cells to form a long tube. Critically, this neural tube develops into the spinal cord, the end of the tube, the neural crest midpoint, the brain, and cells along its length evolved into melanocytes and all of the endocrine glands, pineal, pituitary, adrenal, mast cells, hypothalamus, thyroid, parathyroid, pancreas, and many other glands found in the stomach, intestines, lungs, and intestinal tract. Roost, 1969. Wellborn, 1974, 1977. A G. E. Pierce, 1974, 1969. rediscovered the critical fact that a great majority of cells producing hormonal peptides along the APUD series, amine precursor uptake in decarboxylase, share its distinctive cytochemical and ultrastructural characteristics. Again, all cells producing hormones of this APUD cell series originated from the melanin. The APUD cells derive their name from the initial letters of their first three and most important properties, namely I, a high content of amine, 2, the capacity for amine precursor uptake, and 3, the presence of amino acid decarboxylase for the conversion of the amino acid precursors to amines. One must know that the amines involved are such classic chemicals as dopamine, norepinephrine, tryptamine, and epinephrine, all precursors whose end product of metabolism is melanin. Another of the amines found in such cells is 5-HT, 5-hydroxytryptamine, or serotonin. This amine is the precursor to melanin, a key hormone of the pineal gland.